Now, what do you mean by economic territory? Let's understand. The first thing to note when we talk about economic territory is that economic territory of a country is not simply any political frontiers of that country. According to United Nations, when you talk about economic territory is the geographical territory administered by the government within which person, goods, and capital circulate freely. So it is a geographical territory administered by the government. The government is the one who is going to administer, and it is going to make sure that under that territory, the people, that means the persons, the goods maybe, you know the definition of goods now, it includes services also, and capital. Capital in here means both the things. It means money value also, as well as the assets. Now, wherever these three things can circulate freely, we call them as an economic territory. Clearly, those parts of the political frontiers of a country where the government of that country does not enjoy any of the above freedom, we will say that that is not an economic territory of that particular country. So यहाँ पे एक चीज समझने की है हमको कि it's a political boundary. It is not just that any territory can be an economic territory. It's a political boundary. So definitely the map that you are looking at, it will be called economic territory. But the condition in here is three, that the people, persons, goods और capital, ये तीन चीज freely move करने चाहिए या freely circulate करने चाहिए. One such example, if you want to understand, is an embassies. Now, what does embassy do? Now, when you look at the embassies, and when you move towards the embassies, you know, if you need a passport of some another country, it will be only be issued with the help of embassies. Embassies are the representatives of the one country to another. For an example, in India, there are embassies of America, England, Japan, and most of the 190 nations. But let me tell you, in those embassies, the rules, the regulation, the laws of that particular country only will be observed. For example, a US embassy in India, in Chanakyapuli, in New Delhi, will be following the rules of US only. Whether or not it's stated in India, it will be following the rules of US only. Because in those embassy area, the people of US, the goods of US and the capital of the US can move freely. And that is why it has been called the economic territory of US. Irrespective whether it stays in India or it stays outside India. यहाँ पे ये जो तीन चीज बताई गई यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, पर्सन, गुड्स एंड कैपिटल. For example, the US embassy in India is a part of the economic territory of USA. Similarly, the Indian embassy in Washington will be the part of economic territory of India. As you can say that the embassy of United States of America has their own laws, even they are operating in India. Are you getting this? Okay. Now, based on the freedom criteria, the scope of economic territory is defined to cover. So there are many things economic territory will cover. Now, what many things it will cover? Let's understand one by one. Point number one is the political frontiers, including territory, waters, and airspace. So it will cover the political frontiers. Political frontiers means the political border. You can see this border. This is what we call as political frontiers, including territorial waters. Now, what is the territorial waters? जहां से हमारी बॉर्डर लगती है उससे 12 नॉटिकल माइल्स तक का जो एरिया है Nautical miles are different miles from the geographical political miles. Nautical miles यानी जो पानी के जो व्याप होते हैं उसमें जो माइल्स का जो मेजरमेंट होता है उसको नॉटिकल माइल्स बोलते हैं. इट इज ओनली मेजर इन सी एंड ओशंस. नाउ जो भी हमारी बॉर्डर है वहां से लेकर 12 नॉटिकल माइल्स तक जो वाटर्स बोले जाते हैं उसको टेरिटरी वाटर्स बोले जाते हैं. और वो बाउंड्री जो है टेरिटरी वाटर्स की वो भी उसी देश की गिनी जाएगी जिस देश के बॉर्डर पे ये टेरिटरी वाटर्स स्थित है. After that territory waters, if you see, there will be a contiguous zone, or you can say till another 12 nautical miles, there is another zone. This is what we call contiguous zones. And thereafter, till 200 nautical miles, we call them as an exclusive economic zone. Now, exclusive economic zones are those zones where an industry can operate. Let's say you can do the extraction of oil, natural gas, but it will not be considered as a boundary of that particular country. From, you can say, from contiguous zone, exclusive zone, the entire area will be called the international waters. It means the ship of another country can come, and if in those area, if any of the goods, if any of the people, if any of the capital move freely, हम बोलेंगे कि वो उस देश की इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी के नहीं है पर वो बाहर की इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी के बाहर के है. इस समझ में आ रहा है पहले? सो इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी का मतलब अप टिल 12 नॉटिकल माइल्स. आर यू क्लियर?
Yes.
Fine. The second is the embassies, consulates, military bases, etc. of the country located abroad, but excluding those of other countries located within the political frontiers. क्या मतलब हुआ उसका? समझाता हूँ. For example, if the US is waging a war in Afghanistan, और अफगानिस्तान पे अगर वो अपना मिलिट्री बेस रख देता है, it will be called the economic territory of US. क्योंकि वो मिलिट्री बेस के अंदर उनके ही यूएस के पीपल ही, यूएस की कैपिटल ही और यूएस से गुड्स ही मूव करते हैं. राइट? सो एम्बेसीज है, कॉन्सुलेट्स है एंड मिलिट्री बेसिस है. ये सब एरिया ऐसे है जहां पे जिसका भी ये एम्बेसी, जिसका भी कॉन्सुलेट है, जिसका भी मिलिट्री बेस होगा, उनकी ही वो इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी गिनी जाएगी. जैसे इंडिया में 190 डेज के कॉन्सुलेट्स और एम्बेसीज है, तो वो इंडिया की इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी नहीं गिनी जाएगी. इट विल बी कंसिडर्ड आउटसाइड द इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी ऑफ इंडिया, इवन दो इट इज सिचुएटेड इन इंडिया. पॉइंट नंबर 3, ships, aircrafts, etc. operated by the resident between 2 or more countries. For example, if we want to ship something, some, let's say, textile material to Japan. When we're shipping it, we are using our own cruise liner, or we are using our own cargo ship. Then that cargo ship, if it's traveling between India and Japan, it will be called the economic territory of India. If it is operating from which place to which place, this is what it going to be considered. कौन सी जगह से कौन सी जगह जा रहा है? The area of origin will be its economic territory. जहां से वो origin होता है वही उनकी economic territory गिनी जाएगी. Point number 4. Fishing vessels, oil and natural gas rigs, etc. operated by the resident in the international waters or other areas over which the country enjoys the exclusive right or jurisdiction. Now, if you look at this international waters in above, as I discussed, but यही economic waters के अंदर, इंटरनेशनल वाटर्स के अंदर, फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर हमारे फिशिंग वेसल्स चलते हैं हमारे ऑयल और नेचुरल गैस रिग्स है जहां से हम एक्सट्रैक्शन करते हैं ऑयल एंड नेचुरल गैस का, तो वो हमारी इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी गिनी जाएगी. So it will be belonging to that particular country, whose particular country's oil and natural gas rigs it's belong to. So economic territory समझना वैसे तो easy है, but these are some exceptions that you need to consider while understanding economic territory. Right? So the scope is very wide. What I mean to say. I hope you understand this. Now, what is the implication with all this? इसका मतलब क्या होता है? इसका implications क्या है? Let's understand the implications also. National income and related aggregates are basically measures of production activity. National income and related aggregates are basically the measure of production activity. So whatever you are producing in a country, that will be called as economic territory of that particular country. There are two categories of national income aggregates that we all need to understand. The first we call as domestic income or domestic product. The another we call as national income or national product. Now, what do you mean by domestic and what do you mean by national? These are two words that you need to understand. Any production activity of all the production units located within the economic territory is very important. Again, I'm repeating it. Any production activity of the economic territory within the economic territory, if it is happening, then it will be called the domestic product. Some examples are gross domestic product, net domestic product. But this should happen within the economic territory of that particular country only, not outside that. Within the political boundary. And if it is produced outside and we are buying and selling those production which are producing outside economic territory and we are adding it to our national income, then it will be called national product or national income. We will see what's the difference between domestic and national in the coming slides. It is concerned with where. So when you talk about economic territory, it all concerned with where it was produced. Whether it was produced in the domestic territory or it was produced outside the domestic territory. So this was the concept of economic territory. Now what we are going to understand is about the normal resident of a country. So who is called the normal resident? Do you have any doubt in the economic territory? Do anyone has a doubts?
No, sir.
Fine. Now let's look at normal resident of a country. The very first important note I want to tell you before starting this topic, the resident and citizen are two different concepts. So never confuse them between. So you call citizens as a different concept and resident as a different concept. Citizen is not a resident and resident is not a citizen. Let's understand this concept in detail. This does not mean that a citizen is not a resident and resident is not a citizen. A person can be a citizen as well as the resident of a particular country. Now, how one can distinguish that? So for that, we need to understand who is a resident or who will be called a resident of a country. It is not necessary that a citizen of a country should be a resident of that country only. No, it is not. Never necessary. So when we talk about the resident, there are some criteria to that. See, citizen, you know about it. So let me help you understand who is called a citizen of a country In the normal terms, there is a constitutional article mentions that the, any person who is born in the country will be called a resident of that country. No, sorry, citizen of that country. If a person is not by birth a citizen of a country, then he can acquire citizenship if he follow some basic norms. And these norms are different for every country. So citizen is a very subjective criteria. Citizenship is different for different countries. But let me tell you, the resident, the word residentship is an universal concept. It means in any country you go, there is a basic criteria for having a residentship, and it is almost same in all the country. So a person can be a citizen of one country and at the same time a resident of another country. And we know that the NRIs, non-resident Indians, they are not resident of the country, but they are citizen of India because they're born in India. An NRI is always a citizen of India, but a resident of the country in which he lives. For example, if he lives in Canada, if he lives in US or in any other nation, it will be called the resident of that particular nation. So citizenship is basically a legal concept, you can say. It is based on the place of the birth or some legal provisions that you have to follow to become a citizen. Whereas when you talk about the residentship, it is basically an economic concept, right? It's based on the basic economic activities performed by a person. So for example, if you want to be a resident of America, you need to have a PR, right? And you might have heard this word PR many times. But PR is different from the green card. Whenever you get a green card, you get a citizenship in US, right? So getting a PR, permanent residency, is the entire different word than getting a citizenship. So how they allow to have a citizenship in their country, in Canada, in European nations? So first they have to have a visa. Then from the basis of the visa, you get a PR. And on the basis of the PR, you get a green card, and green card, on the basis of the green card, you get a citizenship. This is how the procedure goes in most of the Western countries, European and America. But here what we are going to talk about, residents. So resident, whether a person or institution, is one. Now this is the broad definition, is the one whose center of economic interest lies in that territory, lies in that economic territory in which he lives. So residentship is not for a person only, it can be for an institution also. It means not a natural person, but can also be furthered to the artificial person. Now the word center of economic interest here implies two things. जब मैं बोलता हूँ कि वो बंदे की सेंटर ऑफ इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट उसी इकोनॉमिक टेरिटरी में लाई होनी चाहिए, तो उसका मतलब दो चीज होता है यहाँ पे. What do you mean by center of economic interest? It implies two things. Number one, the resident lives or he is located within the economic territory. पहले तो वो वहां पे रहना चाहिए जिस टेरिटरी का वो बंदा. And second, the resident should carry out the basic economic activities of earning, spending, and accumulation of wealth from that location itself. So कमाएगा, खर्चेगा, and definitely वो जो investment भी करेगा या accumulation भी करेगा, it should be within that economic territory only. This is what we call about a center of economic interest. Now, those center of economic interest is not lying in that particular economic territory. We don't call them a resident of that country. This is very much clear. If you have any doubts regarding that, you can raise your hand and ask a question. Remember, it is concerned with by whom. So when we talk about economic territory, हम किसकी बात कर रहे थे, कहाँ पे है, right? जब हम रेसिडेंट की बात कर रहे हैं, हम कौन कर रहा है, यानी किससे हो रहा है ये, उसकी बात कर रहे, बाय होम. So these two concepts are very, very important. Economic territory, and on the basis of economic territory, we can understand who will be called the resident of that country. Any doubts? Please feel free to ask me the questions. So in में आ रहा है सबको?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now the last concept that we are going to understand today is the factor income and the transfer income. Now what do you mean by the word factor income and what do you mean by the word transfer income? When the income is generated by the factors of production, we call them as a factor income. Now factors of production are कौन से? कोई बताएगा मुझे? Which are the factors of production? Anyone? Very quickly. Tell me the factors of production. Yes, Ketan.
Yes, sir.
Factors of production. Anyone? Apurva, Banali, Yash, Yashish, Vismaya.
Sir,
Yes, Yash.
land, labor, capital, entrepreneur.
Yes, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So any income earned by these four factors, land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, we call them as factor income. Land earns rent, labor earns wages, capital earns interest, and entrepreneur earns profits. So that these are the factor income. Then we'll understand what you mean by transfer income. So let's understand. The factor income, the income that the four factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, and enterprise, provides, gives us rent, wages, interest, and profit respectively. They are called factor income. Just hold on. Incomes that the four factors of production gives us land, labor, capital, and enterprise, gives us rent, wages, interest, and profit, right? These are the factor incomes. So what do you mean by the transfer income then? Transfer income is different from the factor income. See, factor income are the income earned by doing a productive activity. Whereas transfer income is the income earned not by productive, but out of gift, out of love, if some income that you're going to provide to someone, we call them as a transfer income, like gifts, donations, charity, grants, funding projects. These are all transfer income because it's a very one-sided concept. You're going to provide to them, but you're not getting anything to have in return. Let's understand the very quick difference between the factor income and transfer income. A factor income refers to income received from the factor services, and these factor services are always in a productive nature, like by the land, labor, capital, and enterprise in a production process. Whereas transfer income refers to the income received without rendering any productive services in return. So these are called transfer incomes. Concept. Factor income is always a two-sided concept because एक हाथ से दे, एक हाथ से ले, right? लेन देन दो बाजू होता है. So for example, a carpenter ने कुछ furniture बना के दिया, तो then you are going to pay the money to them, right? So that's a factor income. But transfer income is one-sided concept. Like if you give alms to the beggar, गरीब को आप कुछ दान देते हो, we call them as a transfer income. अमेरिका से कुछ गिफ्ट मिलती है हमको, we call them as a transfer income. कौन सा इंक्लूड होगा नेशनल इनकम में, कौन सा नहीं होगा? रिमेंबर, ऑलवेज फैक्टर इनकम इज इंक्लूडेड, whereas transfer income is never included in the national income. फैक्टर इनकम के एग्जांपल्स, रेंट, वेजेस, इंटरेस्ट एंड प्रॉफिट. लैंड को रेंट, लेबर को वेजेस, कैपिटल को इंटरेस्ट और एंटरप्रेन्योर को प्रॉफिट्स मिलता है. What are examples of transfer income? ओल्ड एज पेंशन फ्री में जो दिया जाता है, स्कॉलरशिप्स, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट अलाउंस, अगर आप बेरोजगार हो तो कुछ अलाउंस देते हैं सरकार आपको, पॉकेट मनी, वो सब क्या है? ट्रांसफर इनकम. बट there are some similarity to that. It can be received either within the domestic territory of a country or from abroad. ये इनकम ऐसी होती है, दोनों इनकम जो डोमेस्टिक में से भी मिल सकती है और बाहर से भी मिल सकती है. सो देयर इज अ सिमिलरिटी. ये डिफरेंस है, पर जस्ट एक ही सिमिलरिटी है दोनों के बीच में, फैक्टर इनकम और ट्रांसफर इनकम. ये दोनों ही इनकम हम कहीं से भी रेज कर सकते हैं. क्लियर हो रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.